pouring himself tea, and he's got his table laid out very neatly. I'm just wondering if there's a connection here.
I don't know, because I didn't see him. I did see the fellow that was doing the cosplay thing, dressed up as Dalsim from Street Fighter. So that kind of took my attention away from anybody dressed up as Englishmen. And there were a couple people that were walking around in suits with kilts. That kind of got my attention as well.
Yeah, garbage truck likes to look up people's kilts.
You know, you have to check. I mean, that is the thing. Make sure that there are actual legs there, because otherwise they're just floating, and it's really, really bizarre. Frankie, did you want to say anything before you leave, because you're bored?
Who knows?
Okay, about this demo, though.
About this demo?
Yes, the one with the mustache.
Lots of flashing squares in the beginning, underneath the mustache.
Underneath.
And the mustache was rotating.
Gasman?
Well, I was wondering something, because I remember from like 5 years back, there was someone who appeared in the demo comp a few times by the name of Kuma Dot. And obviously there's also Kuma, and but I seem to remember that Kuma Dot did like demos in some variant of Basic, and managed to wind up a lot of sceners by including an obligatory old school part in each demo that wound people up because it was old school on a new school platform, and that's like Holy War and that sort of thing. But I was wondering if that is indeed the same guy, then obviously his...
Well, Kuma Piste is Kuma Dot in Finnish.
That would make sense. Right. Well, that's my mystery cleared up then. So, yeah. So I think he's certainly got the old school spirit down now. So, yeah.
And you know, remember when we had a number of Speedfisters demos that were Foleyba related, and I remember in 2003. 10 years ago, there was the whole Foleyba craze during Breakpoint and so forth. So it's kind of a throwback to that, I felt. Anyone else with any other comments on Mustache?
It was colorful. That is a positive thing to say.
I honestly don't remember much about it.
And it had its genuine style.
Right, it did.
There is, if you walk down the hallway here, there is, I think it's between the game lab and the entrance, there are fake old posters of sporting events, and one of them has a picture of a Belgian boxer from 1920s. That's exactly the same mustache. There must be a link that this building wanted this demo to be protested.
Yes, that must be it. All right, the next one, and Sedok, and I'm going to ask you to pronounce this one because there are some people at home who haven't heard the transition between your Irish accent and your Finnish accent, and this always freaks people out when you do it. And you do it naturally because you've lived here for most of your life.
Okay, you really put me on the spot here, so I'm going to transition to Finnish. Silmän sisäinen alkemisti.
Which is a far better job than I will do. Silmän sisäinen alkemistini. I need to work on my Finnish. Which Base Cadet said was translated as?
It's my inner eye alchemist.
This was written, apparently, in the programming language Lisp, which for those of you that use Emacs, you're very familiar with this. Of course, I don't think it was written in Emacs Lisp. It probably was written in some form of Common Lisp. I don't know for sure. And we had a little bit of a conversation before we went on air about whether or not some of the structures that were in this were actually Lisp constructs or whether they were shaders. I was told beforehand that this basically has a few shaders, but it's almost entirely written in Lisp. Does anybody here write Lisp? I am not good at it, even though I have tried to write some Emacs things because I use Emacs. But and I know the language is, well, it has its charms and some WTF moments.
Well, it has lists, and it has infinitely long lists, and that may relate to the most memorable scene of the demo with the infinite dragons, because taking something from an infinitely long list is not a problem in Lisp. So that may have been what's going on there, but who knows?
Satra.
I think the technical term is recursion, so this was like a recursive routine. I mentioned while we were watching this demo that if you don't get this demo, you don't get Lisp, which means that nobody got the demo, of course.
Yes, that is true.
I should have mentioned that the one experience I have of programming Lisp is making a talking moose.
Yes,
Yes.
and you did that with a Raspberry Pi.
Yep, yeah, that was work. Well, we have a tradition of Christmas cards doing something slightly oddball, and last year we had a stuffed moose on the wall of our office that read out tweets that people sent it, and after about 2 minutes of it being online, people started being hilariously abusive and working around the square filter by sort of misspelling things, and it completely drove everyone in the office mad. But anyway, the reason I mention this is that the speech synth was Festival, which is one of these famously shouted things at assembly, and also it's scripted in Lisp, and I couldn't make head nor tail of it.
Well,
Lovely story.
probably because it's all heads coming out of each other and no tail. Shall we move on to the next, or would anybody like to speak more to that one?
I think maybe one thing missing from this demo was really parentheses. Like, I mean, if you can't have a list demo.
No one is going to get your UDP jokes, and no one cares if they do. All right, the next demo, and this is the point where, I mean, I remember the second demo, and I thought it was really cool. And I do remember a bit about the first demo, but at this point, with number 3, I realized that perhaps, since I already knew that several of the quote-unquote big groups, your ASD, your Fairlight, your MFX, your Keulers, the ones that have been big in the past 10 years, who may have won or had head-to-head fights, they weren't here. So at this point, those groups who have maybe been overshadowed by more, I don't want to say professional, but groups that have a longer term of working on things, we're going to have a chance to shine. And so, for example, Pyrotech here, their demo, Return, was the next thing. And the thing that I first noted about it was, well, they really are presenting something here that is of assembly high-end competition quality, and that's what I felt. I'll now go out to the rest of you. Who would like to say something first? Urs.
Yeah.
Only because he raised his hand quicker.
Since I blurted in for the last 2 demos, I thought this time I followed the rules. For once. Yeah, the first thing, even at the start of the demo, that I noticed is that all the assets in there, so textures and geometry and everything, look very, very polished and high class. The actual technical content of it wasn't that fancy. I mean, it was more or less objects moving around, but every typical ASD demo is the same. So they are actually in the same ballpark there. And it all looked very polished, and they seem to have put a lot of effort in there. Mm-hmm. They even went so far and made it as ASD-ish by including a train and guitar music at the same time.
I honestly, and I will move on to somebody else, I honestly think that was a, hey, truck, remember when you were giving us a bunch of crap about being too much like ASD? Well, here, in your face. And I did like that. I thought that, well, again, it's their demo. They get to make what they want. If it were my demo, I'd make what I want. But that, nice touch there. Another thing, I'm not sure, and I'm just going to throw this out to all of you. It's called Return, and I think it's actually using or a second part of the story from last year's demo. At least that's what I remember from last year's demo with the teddy bear and the city and so forth. And they were saying that, yes, they were recycling, but that's because they care. I kind of got a feeling that it was a continuation of last year's demo. Did anyone else get that?
I think it's the return. I think it's more about returning to popular other demos, like the reference to ASD with the train, or I also thought with the flying birds, when it went like that, I was strongly reminded on Rove by Farprausch. And yeah, another thing about Return in this demo is it starts with the bird, which takes off.
Yes.
And the bird is the red line through the demo. And in the end, it returns to its place on the desk. Yeah, maybe.
Japeq.
I think pyrotech in general is an indication of the real problem that I have with, it's a recurring problem that I have with the demo compo in general. And that is that because you don't have the borders, the limitations of the hardware and the limitation of the class, you just get to throw more crap in. And I think pyrotech does that year after year after year, and some other groups do it as well. And I don't think that makes a good demo. I think a great demo is one where there is some kind of concept, you think about the visuals beforehand, and you build everything around that.
Right.
And I don't know why, but pyrotech has never managed to do that.
I'm going to throw back at you that those people that would say that removing all the content and presenting something that is not content makes better demos. What do you think of that?
That sounded like an existentialist.
Yes,
kind
exactly.
Of,
we'll get to one of those in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes. Are you saying that you would prefer seeing more things like that, like the existentialism things, or just throw them out of the comp altogether?
I'm not saying that every demo has to be experimental. I like experimental stuff, yes, but I mean, if you compare it to the 4K intro compo, there was. I'm so tired I forget the name of the demo now, the intro, where there was a real sort of visual cohesion to the intro. So it was like the dots and the white background, and it was like really sort of thought out.
Rust balloon was.
Yes, exactly. And I'm kind of missing that in the demo compo. I mean, there's a lot of resources that you have, and some groups manage to do that. I mean, CNCD, Fairlight have managed to do that in the past. But a lot of groups make the mistake that, hey, we have loads of resources, we can just chuck more stuff in, which is not the right way to do it.
Or not the way that you would do it.
And my way is right.
I understand, but so is everyone's. Gasman, but then I would also like to go to the guys from Adapt, because since they're, I'd like to have their thoughts on something that's different from their own demo. But yes.
I think, yeah, this idea of whether there's too much in there. I have to say the opening scene with the window, I think that has really sort of hit me with. It had the same sort of impact as the Guy Machina opening up with the field of strawberries, and I think that there was real emotion there. But then as it went on, there seems like they were trying to do too much. I think they could have done really top class demos based on those sorts of themes, the window and the train going through the shrubbery, and but yeah,
so
tried too much maybe.
Maybe a bit more cohesion with the themes.
Yeah, the one thing it did do really well was emotion. There's that all the way through, but yeah, it was hard to sort of pick out a theme. But I think, well, now you've explained the possible connection with the previous demo, then I think maybe that's falling into place.
That might be why, in my case, I'm not seeing it as much as what the two of you have said, because I'm seeing that connection with the earlier. But I also am not 100% sure it's really there. I also, because again, I'm tired as well, I may be thinking of the wrong demo from last year, and I may be crossing the streams, and you don't do that. Base Cadet and Deeper, what did you think of this demo? As, you know, it's very different from your style of demo in this compo. What's your take?
Well, first of all, I would like to say for Pyrotech, they have like really good tech. So technically they have always been able to handle proper rendering. And I think like many of their demos has missed late in the previous years some idea that takes the demo from beginning to the end.
Right.
And it's well, it's not always like only 3D. So like now they had some idea, like you explained, that the bird returns in the end, the beginning. Well, I was first thinking that it's like a return of 1 year of silence, after 1 year of silence. I don't know if they released...
There's that also possibility, yeah, because we haven't seen a demo from them. Yeah. They haven't released a demo at any other parties. And yeah, kind of a we are back type thing.
But well, I'm a fan of good effects, so it was nice to see those cloud rendering. I was expecting something more like flying into the cloud, and the lightning is the lights inside the clouds were looking very good.
All right, Base Cadet.
Yeah, like Japeq said, that it depended quite a lot of the content and objects and pre-scripted scenes. It's quite a risk in the demo competition because people are seeing you as cloning the ASD style with that. And like you said, we had quite a contrast to that because I think we had just one object.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yours was. We'll get to it in a minute, but yeah, yours was very different, quite a contrast to this particular demo. Now, I've been, again, I'm probably the most famous, at least in conversations I've had with Pyrotech, for being most critical of them for doing the ASD thing. So in some ways, I agree, but in other ways, that's what they have decided that they would like to do. And one of the things about making demos is that you get to make the demo that you want. And as such, perhaps they're very happy with this. Even if they don't win, perhaps they're really enjoying working this style in. I don't know. Unfortunately, they're not here. Guys, you should, next year, come on down here and we'll put you on and then we'll talk about this a little bit because it'd be good to get your opinions. Moving on to the next one, Division, who also, same type of thing. They brought something, you know, their A game to this competition, which is a good thing because they didn't have the, you know, the Fairlight thing that came in to crush them. So they're kind of standing on an even plane with, say, the Pyrotech guys or the, well, I'm not going to say the Velotrip guys because Vishu's Velotrip demos are always in a place on their own, but certainly the Adapt demo. The thing that struck me was that the pacing was much slower than previous Division demos. It was almost as if they had intentionally slowed this down, which I find interesting in that they named it Ignition, which normally means firing up. Anyone else with any ideas on the pacing, or Frankie?
Yeah. Yes, I would say Ignition perhaps based on that there was one big effect which was fire and fire particles. Hence probably the Ignition name, and that it was almost overused, but at a certain point in time, okay, it's enough. Okay, you start with the burning Hindenburg as a small detail at the main logo, and then you go into the demo logo, which you completely fire up all the letters, and then go on from there. So the name was pretty well picked, and the well, I'm calling it particle fire. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and ASD will correct me when they're here. But who knows?
Okay. Deeper. The effects in this one, I mean, it was kind of an effect demo. I mean, there were 3D objects and so forth. But as a person who likes effects in demos, did you think that there were enough effects? Did you like the effects in this? Did it strike you as a demo with a lot of effect versus a lot of story? Because it kind of did to me.
Yeah, I think they used many of the same effects as in the last year.
Yeah.
Demo. Sorry if I'm wrong, but it's.
It may be. I remember. I just remember that the previous ones were paced much faster, and it was kind of like, in some ways, they were showing the actual effect for itself rather than rushing by.
It looked like they had some kind of particles and cubes, but they didn't use those much. So it's.
I also found that the initial ignition thing, when it was being written on the screen, it seemed odd the way they were doing it until I recognized how it was being done. But it looked a little, well, it looked just plain odd. It didn't look polished. It didn't look wrong. It just looked kind of as if, okay, was it supposed to render like that? Japeq.
Was this the one with the airships?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So like Nazis from the moon, obviously destroying.
Strangely enough, having just seen a movie of that effect, yeah, that was brought to mind as well. For those of you who are watching at home, Iron Sky, the director's cut, was shown here. It wasn't shown on Assembly TV, of course, but it was shown here to the audience. So many of us have just seen many scenes with that type of thing from Iron Sky. And maybe it was intended to do that because, I mean, well, it would be in our minds, and, well, I don't know. Again, the Division guys, you did speak with me on IRC right before the show. Would have loved for you to come down and talk about this one. But then again, I know you also like to just look and see what people had to say in the Compost studios afterwards. Yes?
Yeah, about this Hindenburg scene with the ships going to the Earth and destroying it. This was the scene that doesn't fit to the rest of the demo, I thought, because everything before was nicely modeled and nice lightning, and those ships were just, yeah, I think they, yeah, maybe they saw the film and said to themselves, yeah, let's add that to maybe to get some more votes.
Could be. They did tell me that they did actually finish this one before the party, rather than doing a bunch of
really?
party coding at the end and twiddling with it and tweaking it. So I'm not sure that they added it at the last minute. They may have, well, added it in January or February. Again, they're a group, I don't believe we've seen anything from them outside of Assembly over the past few years. In fact, I think originally there were some questions because the year that they presented their first demo here was the year of the Division party in Austria. So there was some confusion there about, well, is that an invite or is it not? Gasman, your comments on this demo?
Well, I think it's kind of all been said. It's yeah, I think I remember that the previous years with they sort of enjoy their geometry fragmentation of things, and but yeah, I see what you mean about it being a lot slower pace, but
it just seemed like it was slowed down.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember now. Is this the one that also had sort of Asimov's Laws of Robotics in the soundtrack? Because
I heard that, and hold on. It has to be.
Yeah.
Because it definitely was not in. It wasn't in your demo. Yes, you didn't use the Laws of Robotics in your track.
No.
Okay. So it has to be because it definitely wasn't in the Lisp demo, and it was absolutely not in Majestic 12.
Yeah.
So it has to be and I did catch that at the time, but well, then other demos came in, and I'm tired. I'll have to watch all of these at home, and you know I will. That's also something for everybody at home. Download these demos, watch them again, remember how they looked on the big screen, but also they look a little different at home. And, well, they're also fun to watch. That's why we make them. Go ahead.
Well, that kind of made me a bit curious about how that fit into the theme, but yeah, it's...
I'm kind of getting an impression that none of us quite got exactly what the theme of this demo was.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's going back to the old effect show type thing.
Yeah.
But I think for an effects type demo that focused on ignition, as the title suggests, their fire effect actually wasn't all that fancy. I mean, if that is to be the central thing, and it was just polygons wavering around.
Yes.
We have seen better fire in a lot of demos in the past.
So you've done some good fire effects.
Oh, it wasn't me, but
I know, but you personally have. So that's. I mean, you did you and the guys in Mercury when you did the revision invite 2 years ago in 64K. The fire that you guys did was not just embers, but also flames and so forth. And yeah, that was that. But before we go to Japeq, Frankie had something to say.
Actually, what Urs said.
Okay. Urs, thank you for speaking for Frankie.
Yeah.
I'm probably slightly getting mixed up between Division and Royal Elite Ninjas. To be honest, they were sort of getting jumbled up in my mind. Was this the one also with the kind of the particle type effects? Those things sort of, exploding sideways and things like that. So I was just thinking it was a bit of a tribute in a way to the old CNCD winner from a couple of years back. Was this the one with that? Because I'm not sure if I'm mixing up.
There were explosions and particles.
Yeah.
I don't remember that being in the PESIK and Royal Elite Ninjas thing, though.
Well, that kind of had particles that were forming words. And things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was more, and we can just move on to that demo now as kind of a segue. Yeah, more words were being formed. I couldn't read all of the words.
Yeah.
That was one of the difficulties I had with it. I thought that at one part it was saying the credits, but I couldn't quite make out what it was, and it was the camera angle. It almost seemed to me that this was more of an attempt at a 64K. Did anybody else feel that?
Yeah, it did feel like an extension of an entry that I think we saw in the 4K. So yeah, so I don't know whether this entry itself was size limited, and obviously the lack of 64K compo this year means it would have ended up in the demo compo in that case. But yeah, it did seem like the synth seemed like the 4K-ish synth. So yeah, so
well. Well, not Royal Elite Ninjas, but at least PESIK normally does size limited. Deeper, you have a comment.
Yeah, I see it more like the design selection from Basic. If you think see Basic's demo from last year, it's doesn't have many textures and it's like a good effect or better effects than most demos have. And so if you do that in a demo, you get blamed of everybody saying that okay, you could have done a 4K of
well, there's that too.
It's actually not so easy. So
no. I mean, I have said that I would really like to see the 64K compo come back, and I know we didn't have all that many entries here over the past years, but I do feel that the jump from demo to 4K is a bit too large. Japeq.
We were talking about this during the 4K Combo Studio. I think there's an argument that could be made on having just the 1K and then the 64K and then a demo. So not
I would
4K.
just trash the 1K.
Really? I thought the 1K was one of the best compos.
I do not enjoy that compo at all. It is... every single one of those could be much better if it was done in 4K, and it's well, Frankie, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's what we discussed during the various previous compo studios here, and also upstairs at our scene set area. Is that it seems that okay, the 1K is the 1K and the 4Ks is the 1K, but instead with general MIDI music, it is with the soft synths, whereas then and one of the 4Ks, the last one was actually kind of a demo, with the demo compo then being, well, some of them could be reclassified as 64Ks. So it's all quite a bunch and a mix-up, which makes it really hard to actually see what was going on. And that's going to be a suggestion that I've mentioned before, is that please have the file size on the big screen, because now it's really hard to judge how big is this, and is this a 1K that didn't make it? Is this was this an original 64K? Is this demo 200K, 1 megabyte, 2 megabytes, 500 megabytes? We don't know, and it would be easier to judge everything. But I'm already jumping to conclusions. We still have a couple of demos to go, so I'll give back to you.
But just to sum up, it was confusing determining what type of things they were, even though they were classified. It seemed that the classification could be wrong in some cases, and for the demo compo, having the actual size, especially since we don't have a 64K compo, having that will help us to determine, hey, is this a size-limited thing that is being done for the reasons of limitations of size, or is it something that looks like that, but instead is really, really huge? Back to staring through. After the previous two demos, I don't remember all that much about this one, and then of course the following one being the Belotrip one, and then the ADAPT demo. It seems to me that this one, at least in my mind, suffers from its placement in the compo, because it was kind of overshadowed by the previous two, and also overshadowed by the following two.
Yeah, the previous two ones were very heavy on detail, very finely textured, and this one had this more plain art style, which somehow made it, I don't know, it didn't stick so well.
It was appealing.
It was consistent in its style, and it made sense, but for some reason it didn't quite affect me that much.
It's not stuck up here in my head as to what this is, and that's a real shame, because here I am talking about the demo and I can't remember much about it other than I couldn't read the things. Frankie.
Well, there's the one memorable thing about it was the text writer. That you would have the particles float in, and they would create a plane, and then out of that would come letters, and it would move back out. And well, that's maybe the only thing that you will remember, because that's how everybody here says, "Oh yeah, that one."
Right.
Yeah.
Sadly enough.
And there was quite a lot of glitchy stuff and some noise stuff, some layered pictures of people's faces, and them malformed a little.
Thank you. Yes, that is true. There was that, and there was a sample at some point in the demo, and then it changed pace. I will have to watch this one again. That's simply what it comes down to. I will simply have to watch this one again.
And it's Belotrip's farewell demo.
Yes.
They're not gonna do it anymore.
Well, somehow I think Vishu will continue to do something, but it won't be Belotrip. He'll do one of his other projects, and he has many. Sedok.
Are we on the Belotrip now?
No.
Well, I'm not saying anything.
We are just talking about various demos, and there was a comparison made to Belotrip. I would like to comment, or I'd like anybody that has anything more to say about staring through. Venom?
Just one little comment. I really love the group name, Royal Elite Ninjas. This is nice. Yeah.
It is an excellent name. I think they've produced some other. Well, they did the GBA thing, or no, the Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
Thing earlier. Sadok, did you have something to say, or do you really want to move on to Below Trip and say what you wanted there?
I'm on Below Trip.
You're on Below Trip already. Deeper.
In the steering through, I think it's like it was nice to see the demo name shown, like making holes. First, it was hard to read the steering, but then you can see that it's you're steering through, and that's something.
Yeah.
I think after that, the demo had it had some very nice particle cloud in the air and some good effects. And I think it was once again a design decision to begin with very simple stuff and advance it.
Perhaps if they made a remix of this, a final version, and they just use slightly different camera angles, so it's a little easier to read the things. Perhaps that would be perhaps that would help. At least I'd be able to read it. Base Cadet.
Yes, I just made a mistake. I thought we were talking about Below Trip.
Okay. So I didn't remember this then. Okay, we now must move on to Below Trip because we've already, in some cases, dropped some things. Sadok is going to explode if I do not call on him. So let's see how long that takes. Anyone with anything to say other than Sadok?
About Below Trip?
Yes, about Below Trip.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, you'll have to wait. Oh, wait, Frankie. No, Sadok. Sadok.
No, I can do it very short.
Okay, and then you're going to go.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No, but I have one sentence.
Right.
I didn't get it.
Okay.
I'm sorry to adapt, guys. This was the demo for me. This was absolutely awesome. And I've seen Visu's demos before, and sometimes, I mean, there's always been a bit of an edge, but this just came together beautifully. There was a story. There was scene poetry that didn't suck. It tied into objects that were coming in. There was a bit of a political kind of thing going on. Did you watch the same
demo that I did? Because I didn't see any scene poetry.
Well, there was the text thing on the left-hand side, which I not quite scene poetry, but
was it in Finnish?
There was a story. No. There was,
maybe it's my eyes.
There was a story on the left-hand side going on. You know, it was describing things happening. This actually is not only an awesome demo and my favorite. Sorry, we're going to fight about this maybe. My favorite from this compo, but also one of the best demos that I've seen for quite some time. I really, really love this.
Okay, you as a person who really enjoys abstract and different types of demos, so if something's really out there, you tend to gravitate toward that. So I'm not surprised. I'm not going to say it's one of the best demos in recent years. I am going to say I really liked the soundtrack.
The soundtrack was absolutely awesome as well. It was just, everything just came together.
I also felt that the ending, when it faded to black and still left the music going, that was very interesting on this screen. I'm not sure that will work at home. Venom.
Yeah, the ending was a bit like a heartbeat, I thought.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's also my favorite from this combo. Yeah, not the best demo this year, but it's also my favorite because I really like also the Satori stuff and yeah, it felt a bit like a mixture between Satori, PWP, and MFX. For me.
How can you not like this demo? I mean,
well, I'm not saying that I don't like the demo. In fact, I really do. I think that's an excellent thing. Since Satori wasn't here, this was a demo that was like Satori for me, and I always really enjoy what Zden puts together. So I think, again, some of it may have been that when I was watching it, I really liked the soundtrack. As Frankie said afterwards, he said, judging by the way that you were banging your head, or you really liked this. Mm-hmm. I did. I really liked the soundtrack. I did not see any of the text you're talking about. And it may have been the color scheme, and it may have been that it was far enough away, and there's detail there that I missed because I was far away from it in the thing. Base Cadet.
Well,
you already said something about the music and how it changed. So let's say that again, if you can't think of anything else.
I like to think that the soundtrack, the lo-fi effect thing on the ending, it was the sample rate was going lower all the time, but it just made a stop, and then it was constant. I was waiting for the whole thing to come down, like 100 style or something like that, when you can't hear a thing at all.
Gasman?
Well, because long story short, I'm with Frankie. I didn't get it, but But what I found with all kinds of experimental demos like MFX, minimal artifacts, it's there's some that I connect to and some that don't, and and it seems like there's no logic that determines which ones do and which ones don't. And for this one, for whatever reason, it didn't. But I can see that there's elements there that it would actually in a different phase of the moon or whatever, it may have worked out for me. But actually, the thing that I found was when I actually did sort of get out of the zone and then looked at the hall and a darkened room and with these abstracts, abstract minimal things on screen. It felt like something from 1984. So at that level, I kind of did dig what it was doing there.
Frankie.
Okay, now that I have my partner in crime, I can extrapolate. Thank you, Gasman. I didn't get it just because it was a plethora of flashing images and little unreadable text in the upper corner, going from one visual to another. I didn't see any cohesion or rhythm or putting things together. Just, okay, we have like 5 million layers of graphics and just put them together and move them around and show them. And that being said, I would play the soundtrack on Scene Set multiple times.
Oh yes, we will play it in our next show.
That everything else, I actually agree on that one. We should, because it's a great soundtrack. But everything else, it's either my EBM rivet head brain does not compute to that because it wants 4/4 front 2 for 2 beats and not that. It's well, I'm pretty sure Setok later over beer. Please talk through it with me frame by frame, and then let's, if I go all headhunter on you, I apologize.
You're both front 2/4 fans, so it's not an issue.
Yeah, I know. So that's where we have at least we have at least that in common.
But do you listen to Skinny Puppy as well?
No, I think it's Racket.
Why not?
Yeah, that's
because it's, in my opinion, Racket and noise and rate, and it's absolutely not structured. I need structure.
Okay, well, their new album you need to hear. Okay, I would like to bring up something specifically with the two of you, and I apologize to everybody else on the panel. But what I think I kind of just heard you say was that, in a way, this demo just had too many things thrown into it over and over again, and you had said earlier that that was the type of thing that the other demos were doing. So, would you two just discuss?
But you see, this had a concept to it. I mean, there was a visual similarity between all the parts. I mean, they had used common filters. There was the way that they tied in the images of suitcases with an actual object of a suitcase that kind of came in from the void. It wasn't. I mean, there wasn't a mass of different types of effects. It was basically one effect or two effects or three effects tied together and telling a story throughout the demo. So this, I mean, you might not like the kind of visual concept, but it was a visual concept that they had.
I'm sorry, I have to basically say you just described the demo from Pyrotech.
No.
And I'm afraid that I see both of these demos as I disagree about throwing everything in the kitchen sink into both of them. I think they both have elements of cohesion and elements of let's move over here because I feel like going over here now. But I have very, since you have opposite sides of the coin of what I think is the same type of demo, except one is 3D and one is primarily 2D. I think that's really where I'm looking at it.
I'm also doing back because we have these little cheat sheets which have the demo list.
Yes.
And for Majestic 12 we have the screenshot of the pre-calc loader.
Yes.
And I have to say, was the pre-calc actually pre-calcing something, or was it just loading 5 million images into memory? Because I did not see anything that needed to be pre-calced in there, so I guess it was just like loading images.google.com on suitcases and go for it.
But there were 3D objects as well, so there was like code coming in, but it just kind of
I'm not saying that there is no code, but if you need to pre-calc a rotating suitcase, then your C64 can do it better.
No, it wasn't pre-calculating. It was a visual concept.
Oh yes, so it was actually randomizing and creating the concept on the fly.
Well, someone earlier said that this demo was a demo with a message or something, or social criticism. So I think I, for one, clearly also saw this message. So I think it was current. It was maybe, in seeing these NSA scandal stuff, and I think it was a bit. I think it was the message was also about in that direction.
It was abstract, but it had a message, and you received that message after watching it. Right. Deeper, as a person who, again, you mentioned earlier about the effects, and Sedok is saying that there are quite a few effects in this thing. What's your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that it's pretty brave to have the courage to make a demo like this here. Yeah. So it's
especially in front of
stick on the concept and
in front of this audience. This is not traditionally an audience that will respond well to a political heavy or other Below Trip demos that have been shown here in the past have been shown first or second, as if they were not quite so liked by the jury.
But on the effect side, I think it had a very nice like analog style stuff, and also it was at some point very difficult to tell if something is rendered or if it's a picture, some photograph or something. But it's in the end it actually didn't matter because everything was very tightly and nicely bound into the music, and the sync was so intense. I think it was kind of making the overall mood of this demo.
So between sync, the overall processing effects, and perhaps use of color, from all that it came together and produced a effect demo, not a 3D one, but a 2D demo. That's kind of what you're saying.
I have to say that actually I believe there was not one individual effect in there, and I also didn't get any message from this demo. But the one thing that this demo really did well was convey, without nothing in particular in this demo expressed anything, but in total it had this wonderful flow from the, let's call it the green emotion at the start to the red emotion at the end. That is, without doing this explicitly, it managed very well to express this flow in I don't know, in feeling of the demo. And normally I'm a person that totally detest noise demos because I think they're just random shit thrown on the screen. But in this case, it actually worked. It was just random stuff thrown on the screen, but it managed to. I like the color, I like the green, and I like the transition to the red, and that worked very well without even conveying a message by itself. It was just a screen full of stuff hitting me.
I remember red and I remember black, and I don't remember any green.
It started green. After the load, it was green.
All right. Well, there you go. I have become red-green colorblind. Yes, Frankie.
So, if I may suggest that we reorder ourselves in like the order that we like the demo, so that me and Gasman over there, Urs can sit in the middle, and the two guys can stay in the chair over there.
We're going to move on now to the last demo, or perhaps we're going to have one last comment from Seba.
Actually, more of a question. So, was I the only guy who was actually reading the text as well?
I did not. I didn't know there was text.
I actually read the text, or I tried to read it, and I could make out, say, like, you know, it would say loading this text, loading that text, and you could actually read it, but therefore I can read Finnish, but I don't understand it. I could read what was in there, I just didn't get it.
Okay, so just checking that I'm not going crazy, because it has been a long day. So.
You know, I have read it, but the message went right through me.
Yeah, I think well, what's said, I think that kind of hits the nail on the head for me. I was trying to read the text and trying to follow the theme of it, and it left me wondering what swallowing a pill had to do with the police violence, or I just couldn't really follow a narrative through it. But yeah, I definitely appreciate the sort of change in mood